Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of sports, specifically in Canada, and specifically in hockey, just like the name implies. I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Twitter at ProfitMick, and I'm joined every episode by the guy upstairs,
Grant, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. I came to a sad realization this week, and maybe it's not so sad because we had a good run, but we are done. Like, absolutely finished with multiple game hockey nights until at least October. That's some sad shit, man. Like, we've had a good run, and I actually spent a lot of time getting into this hockey season, and just like that is being taken away from me.
Yeah, what was that? Because when did the season kick off? Sometime in January? Kind of beginning in January there. It was a good, 5-month stretch. Lots of hockey. Really dove into it. Probably watched more hockey this year than I have in the last maybe 5 years. I know we've been doing this podcast for 5 years, and I shouldn't admit that, but I probably watched more hockey this year. It's fun. I'm feeling you. I'm lamenting it a little bit. I just mentioned before we kind of kicked off the show, I was really hoping we had a Game 7 tonight. I was praying. Saturday night, Game 7, Colorado, Vegas. Put some money on Colorado in Game 6. What I should have done was I should have emotionally hedged that, as I should have put a bunch of money on Vegas to win, knowing that my disappointment today would make up for the loss. Now I basically hit a loss-loss situation. So now I'm sitting here, I got no hockey on a Saturday night, couldn't throw the TV outside, sit, enjoy the weather. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Well, you'll probably be rooting for Belgium over Russia in Euro 2020. But again, that only gets you till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So after that, you're on your own.
I think I'm playing Manhattan Project after that. So based on a recommendation from a dear friend. So that's...
Yeah. He said this dear friend sounds like a fantastic guy.
Handsome, too. You didn't mention how handsome he was, so...
Heated debate over Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games, but that is not the point of the Canada Puck Podcast.
No, that's not what we do. What we do is we do some headlines. So what we usually did was we were looking specifically at the North Division. There's one team left. We'll talk about that. I think actually we do have to do an in memoriam. Is that what we were calling them?
I think we could do in memoriam. I feel like we would need a Sarah McLachlan song, kind of as overage. We've been calling them postmortems. I feels like dissecting things maybe more postmortem, but I'm good with in memoriam. We just need that sappy song to kind of cover our bases.
There you go. So we got that. And then a couple other series kind of wrapped up. We're on to the Final Four. And go from there. So, I mean, if we're going to start at the top. We got to start as negative as possible. Let's talk about the Montreal Canadiens. No, just kidding. Let's talk about the post-mortem on the Winnipeg Jets season. They got swept. So they finished the postseason.
I will remember you. No, you got to keep talking. I was just fucking doing the song for you.
Connor Hellebuck, after one heck of a season, looking like he is just an outstanding Vezina candidate, realized that Tucker Poolman, for some reason, was playing defense in front of him for 30 minutes a night. And he stopped giving a fuck, so...
Tucker Poolman, who started out as
a joke,
an ironic joke on this podcast, turned into a number one defenseman.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. The Jets, their forwards just kind of didn't show up, right? Defensively, they weren't great. Hellebuck did not play his best performances against Montreal there, and they just couldn't match the physicality, the kind of shutdown defense and that physicality that Montreal brings to the table, and that was kind of it. Corey Perry and Eric Stahl looked like they were hitting the primes of their career in the postseason thus far, and Pierre-Luc Dubois looked a lot like Patrick Laine on the ice, so what you gonna do?
Yeah, I don't think that we should let Pierre-Luc Dubois get away scot-free, because he's been kind of an asshole this entire postseason.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned that the Jets forwards didn't show up. I'm starting to believe in this Montreal defensive scheme. That is, you saw that it worked against the Leafs. We saw that it worked against the Jets. Can they make it work against the Vegas Golden Knights?
that's tough, you know. Like I mean, that is the $1 million question, isn't it? It's can they make a push? Can they make a play? Right? Like they are as big and physical. Like we've been talking about, the high end skill isn't there. Although their power play did come alive in that Jet series. They were, you know, if they were getting penalized or if they're on the power play, they're actually scoring, which we weren't saying when they were playing kind of the Leafs there. It was kind of a bit of a joke. Looked like that normalized a little bit, which is nice. I don't know. The one last thing on the Jets is finishing the postseason 4-4 is really tough to do. So kudos to the Winnipeg Jets. I don't know. Like there must be other teams that have had that happen. Like they've won a series by sweeping and then they've been swept themselves. But like, if I'm Hellebuck, I'm fucking like going home and I'm like, I was 4-4, baby. I was fucking perfect 50%. I played every game we had. That's really, really tough to do. So kudos to the Winnipeg Jets. Enjoy your summer.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I read a stat. I think this was the fourth time in the postseason that a team was swept after being swept. But I don't know if all four times came in rounds 1 and 2. So, like, Connor Hellebuck could be, like, he could have set a record in here in this postseason, and that is by going 4-4. Like, that's pretty cool, actually. You are right.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that we knew was going to be the Jets' Achilles heel was their Achilles heel. And it has been their Achilles heel for, what, 2 seasons now? 3 seasons maybe even? Yeah, maybe not 3 seasons. Definitely the last 2.
Yeah. Maybe more than that. Like, I'm thinking early on, like maybe even season 1 or 2 of Canada Puck, we were talking about the Jets Lightning as kind of favorites for the Cup, right? So I mean, this has been one of those things where it's been a slow build, and they just they keep kind of doing the Sisyphus thing, you know, like rolling that boulder up the hill and watching it roll back down. They can't quite get over that peak, so they just kind of, I don't know, I really don't know where you kind of go from there, right? Do you care to comment or talk about? I thought was an outstanding gentleman in Mark Scheifele before we move on.
Are you talking about the presser that he did?
Yeah.
Where basically... Yeah, you know, I don't get all these keyboard warriors, to be honest. Like, I don't... Like, imagine being, like, what Mark Scheifele did was fucking dickish. Like, yeah. He went out there and hurt somebody. He knew that he didn't do the right thing, and he accepted that. But who the fuck starts going after his parents, like, his family, his brothers, whoever it is that they were going after? Like, get over yourself, you piece of shit. I kind of feel bad for the guy after everything, when everything's said and done. And I guess it's really just like, yeah, a bunch of assholes. Like, I thought Mark Scheifele was the asshole in this, but turns out we got that full character arc with Mark Scheifele, and that is, you know, fine, he owned his mistake, he apologized for it, good for you. But it turns out everybody else is the asshole. So, like, my mind was blown. Like, one of those, like, Game of Thrones moments, or, like, M. Night Shyamalan moments. Like, oh, my God, like, I didn't see this coming.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is one of those things where it is kind of a polarizing situation. I think what we're seeing, though, is the effect of, and maybe it's just me, when I'm watching right now, it looks like there's not a lot of whistles currently in this postseason. I don't know if the refs have just been told across the board, kind of let the guys play. But it seems like there's a high, like the games are physical, right? And those are kind of what happens, right? Like the Scheifele incident is what happens when you don't call the physicality early on and you let it get physical, is you get carried away and somebody gets hurt, right? And you're going to see that again. And we're seeing that kind of across the board, right? Where you're seeing cheap shots not being called, the guys getting kind of pulled down, things that should be penalties aren't being penalized, and that's kind of the end result. And it's a shame that happened, and you kind of wish the best for all the parties involved, but
yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. You are right. The playoff standard, like, I know NHL refs have a playoff standard. Everybody knows this. Like, a penalty in the regular season is not a penalty in the postseason. That's the way it's been for years.
Yeah.
But it's getting to that point where it's like, what the fuck? Like, and like, we've talked about this every week, the entire postseason. Like, how are we letting some of these calls go? And how, like, why is this the standard? Like, why are we all of a sudden letting bad hits? Or why are we letting holding the sticks? Or why are we letting, like, people getting run over? just slide and saying, "Oh, sorry, it's playoff hockey." Like at a certain point, this is not just playoff hockey. This is like escalating. This is like kerosene or dry brush on a kerosene fire. Like it's just we're gonna get to that point where things are gonna get messy. Maybe it's this postseason. Maybe it's an incident next year. Who knows? But we're gonna get to a point where there's a reckoning between all right, our playoff standard has to change.
Yeah. I guess in terms of that, and I don't know if this is just that frustration of only seeing 6 teams, right? Like essentially you've only seen 7 teams potentially all season, and you've built up those rivalries. You get these guys kind of chattering at each other, and I do think one of the things the NHL does not get credit for enough is how hard it is to play hockey, right? Like you're out there, you're chipping away at guys, you're fucking being a pest on the ice, you're trying to be big, you're trying to be physical. It's a tough game. And you don't see these guys being super best friends with each other, all buddy, chummy, like you do in, say, like the NBA. The NBA is a great example of this, where no one wants to be physical with each other. No one wants to be tough. Everything's a foul. You see these guys being crybabies, and they're all best friends behind the scenes, and then they create these super teams, and we see these little pockets of super teams kind of moving around the league, and that kind of dictates the history, essentially, because everyone's kind of soft. Whereas I feel like hockey players are kind of almost the opposite. They're almost like just abrasive for abrasive sake. And there's some guys I'm sure that will never... Like, history of the league could be altered based on if you have a dick on your team or if some guy did something along the line, right? Like Mark Scheifele now and the Montreal Canadiens is going to have a fractured history for the rest of his kind of existence. And that's cool. I kind of like that. I kind of like that, those layers of abrasion, right? And not that everyone is just kind of like holding hands and like hugging it out and, going on banana boats down in Miami or something like that in the off season. And you see these backdoor shenanigans. So I do respect that. But yeah, like we said, I don't know if it's just, we'll see if there's a bit of a consequence for the lack of whistles. So.
Maybe that's why we're such good friends, Mick, is because I love getting booed. Like, I would way rather get booed than cheered. So maybe that's the characteristic you like most about me, is I'm that super pest that you'd rather be friends with than not be friends with.
Yeah, I'm like, guys, like, it's just too fucking abrasive to argue with Grant. I'll just go with it. So, fuck it, let's go. Speaking of the poor Winnipeg Jets, though, we have to give credits, and maybe we did already, to the Montreal Canadiens. We talked last week, we went to a dark place. One of the darkest times I've ever been on this podcast is talking about the Montreal Canadiens beating the Toronto Maple Leafs. 4 games later, a week later, they are in the semifinals against the Vegas Knights. The 2 stripper capitals of the USA and Canada head-to-head matchup. Let's see if we can't let's see if we can't reveal more about the series. No? All right.
I wish I heard that. I just got pieces and was all cutting out. I don't know what's going on.
Shit. All right. I said we have the stripper capital of Canada versus the stripper capital of the United States going head-to-head. Let's see if we can't reveal more about this series. There we go. I thought there would be a reaction. All I got on was just a blank stare, and I was like, really? That didn't hit a nerve? Shit.
No! Oh my god. How you connect all the best dots. Yes, this is exactly what we need. This is more than hockey. This is Shea Parade versus whatever a fancy Las Vegas one was. I never went to a fancy Las Vegas one was. Or Las Vegas strip club.
Yep, no.
But
neither.
I know value-wise, you know what? This is actually a perfect metaphor because value-wise, advantage Montreal, without a doubt. Montreal... I think it was $15 gets you 1 song lap dance in Montreal. Great value. I know for a fact you're not getting that in Vegas. That's akin to the series price right now because Montreal is plus 330, which seems fucking asinine for a team that just has won 7 straight games to be listed at plus 330. Like, I will concede Vegas is the better team. They have all the metrics working in their favor. But Montreal plus 330 in a best-of-7 series with Carey Price in that just doesn't make sense. More on that later. I think when this playoff series is done, we have to test this out. We have to go. We will be the people to say, you know what? these situations are analogous. Vegas strippers, you get the glitz, you get the glamour, you get the fancy, shiny stuff. But Montreal, you get the working class. That's where, like the toothless warriors who are out there battling for us. And you know what? I just said it 2 minutes ago. I'm more of a toothless guy.
It's true. He does fucking love big gummy smile, so. Oh, shit. Yeah, so I actually have the series prices pulled up on the screen. According to OddsShark, I don't know if this was updated, about plus 400 for Montreal, minus 600 for the Vegas Knights. That's a big discrepancy. I think money is obviously shifting one way, not the other. That's kind of what we're seeing on the screen there. The Vegas Knights, I mean, them, like I said, I really should have bet on them the other night because I was really hoping for Game 7 tonight. Oh, well, what you going to do? There are interesting builds kind of throughout. So, I mean, you look at both these teams, they've got great goaltending, they've got really solid defensemen, and then they've just kind of got that depth. They don't have that high-end piece. They don't have that elite-level talent going up front. Although, I mean, again, tip of the hats. I mean, I would take a Mark Stone and Pacioretty over, say, Cole Caulfield or, like, I don't know, Nick Suzuki. Interesting to see kind of Pacioretty get to go up against his old team, right? That'll be kind of one of those interesting storylines to kind of follow and just kind of watch from there. It's interesting. I think I was going to go to Colorado, where we see kind of this high-end offense. The kind of the main pieces are up front. Colorado's a pretty good team, and they kind of got embarrassed after starting out 6-0. They did not look good after those first kind of 2 games against Vegas. They kind of looked human. And we saw that across the board, right? Like we saw the Edmontons with their high-end offensive talent. We saw the Leafs with their high-end offensive talent. You look at even like Carolina. I think Carolina's built really well. They were kind of, what were they missing? Goaltending? I think it kind of was a credit to goaltending at this point. Fleury, Price, Vasilevsky, maybe not Varlamov. Maybe that's a different kind of outlier at that point. But like goaltending is going to take you far in this postseason. So Carey Price, Fleury? I don't know. Did I make a point? Did I black out?
Silence. So, I think you touched on a couple to a few. It's all laughing how dominant Colorado was. Like they were like, and we talked about it last week how this just inflated their PDO to the point where like it was inevitable that they not get a bad bounce. Like, and that second goal in Game 3 broke them. Like it absolutely broke them. From that point on, I can't even. Was it Marchessault who banked it in off of Grubauer? Marchessault's behind the net, banks a puck in off Grubauer. Pacioretty gets that sweet tip 47 seconds later. That was the difference. Like if they don't score those goals, well, guess what happens? Like Colorado goes up 3-1. You bet your sweet ass Vegas isn't coming down or coming back from 3-0. Hockey is a random game. Like everything about this game is random, and you can just like the way the puck bounces. Like we've seen like dump-ins go in the net off of bad stanchion bounces. Like it is a random game, and sometimes like there's something to be said about the analytics and how you embrace them. And I would say, from what I've seen, Vegas and Montreal have embraced analytics more so than Tampa Bay and New York has. And if you wanted to, like, we'll get to this maybe, or maybe we can just address it all at once. The Islanders have Barry Trotz, who's kind of like, you're right, they kind of got lucky against Carolina, and Tampa Bay got lucky against Boston. Like, if you look at the metrics...
All the way around.
Sorry. My old brain's not a little foggy today. But if you look at the metrics, these teams were not the better teams in the games. Like, they ended up getting lucky, and like when the Islanders beat Boston outplayed them by a substantial margin in 3 of the games that the Islanders, or 2 of the games that the Islanders won. Like, goaltending is key, but I think as far as like analytics go, Montreal and Vegas deserve to be in the Cup final. We'll never get it. They don't, like, obviously it will never happen, but I'm excited to see how this randomness plays out in the Islanders Lightning more than anything, because both these teams have been basically shit. Like, they're both lucky to be here, and they both have goaltending to thank for it. I think the Islanders have been less lucky, or I guess the Lightning have been more lucky, and that is like Vasilevsky has let in 4, 5, 6 goals this postseason, but the Lightning have still won. Like, to get that shoddy goaltending performance and increased offensive output in the exact same games 8 times through the first, 11 games, 12 games?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. Like, Lightning should not be here.
Yeah.
And that's not even bringing up their goddamn cap circumvention. Like, don't get me started on here. We're going to sit Kucherov until the playoffs, and then guess what? Fuck you guys. We're $18 million over the cap.
100%. And like to that note too, I've seen people kind of griping about that. And I'm like, if he was legitimately hurt all season, you know what? I have honestly no issue. Like, ethically, if they can say without a shadow of a doubt, he was definitely hurt, could not play. But the fact that he's coming back and playing at like the MVP level that he is playing at kind of makes me think that he wasn't as hurt as he was making it out to be. And that's kind of what hurts, right? Like, and I think that's kind of where it bugs me a little bit. But yeah, like, talk about, was it last Saturday? That afternoon affair between Carolina and Tampa Bay. That was a fucking gangbuster of a game, right? Like, it was 1-0 after a first period, and I think I had the over 5 goals or something like that, 5.5 goals on a ticket. They scored like 6-7 goals combined in the second period. It was absolutely just pandemonium. It was kind of great, and like you said, yeah, like Vasilevsky, I mean, I'll call him a great goaltender, but he was not showing anything special in that game right there. So that analytics, I saw somewhere else too that something about. So, anyways, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was on the over too, but I want to hear what you had to say.
No, that's all I got. That's all I got. 'Tis all I got. I think those are all my points. I'm excited. You know what? I think I hate the Boston Bruins, so I was excited to see the Boston Bruins lose. And other than that, I don't know if I care. Like, I don't want to be that guy on a hockey podcast saying like, oh man, this is going to be great. I'm excited to kind of see it through. I don't know if I have like a personal bias with any of these Final Four teams winning the cup at this point. It's kind of interesting. Am I frozen?
So I've said something for a long time, and that is like I always thought Montreal would be the Canadian team to bring it back to Canada, and by that I mean bring the cup back to Canada. It just felt like the right thing when we think about like the gap that's been 93. How many? Damn it, man! We're almost 30 years past that. Like I just. I don't know what's going on today. It's a little choppy, but I think with like I've always had this like I want to be right more than anything. So I want Montreal to be the Canadian team to bring the cup back to Canada. Like that's something that, like I said, I'm pretty sure I've been saying this for like 20 years now. At least the last 10, maybe 20 is a little over. Maybe take the under on that one, but. I think Montreal's been close in years past. Like they made the the semifinals. Was that the Rangers 6 years ago, something like that? 2015, yep. They had that good run.
Something like that. Yeah, it was. And the Senators. I mean, like we talk about that. They were in overtime Game 7 with the Penguins.
Anyways, I think as far as Montreal goes, I have a slight attachment to them, but otherwise, and Vegas too. Like. It's hard rooting for a team that has been this good in the first 4 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of one of those things where.
Sorry, Mick. I don't know what's going on today. You go ahead.
No, all good. I think I'm like maybe my Skype's lagging. Like you're talking or something like that, and I'm like catching. Anyways, yeah. Vegas is really tough to kind of cheer them. As a Leafs fan, don't have a lot of love for the Canadians. I mean, if I would like to see, I guess, Canada win a cup. Sure, why not? Vegas, they're too new to care, right? It sets an unrealistic expectation for everyone else in the league. Not fair. And then if we kind of look at that other series, Tampa just won, so I mean, I guess the Islanders, sure, why not? I don't know at this point. I'm just kind of going to follow along, be disappointed, I guess. I don't know, go from there. Yeah, so that kind of wraps up that. I have nothing else left to say on any of the series that were. The look ahead, we can get into Bettor Advice and kind of go from there. Does that work?
Yeah, that works for me.
All right. All right, so I got the odds. What do you want to do? How are we doing? How did we do last week?
With Bettor Advice?
Yeah. So for myself...
Oh, that's a great question, actually. My brain's... You go ahead, Mick.
All right, I'll go ahead. We'll be very specific when we talk in the future. Obviously, we're having technical difficulties. So I hit a couple overs. I think I had over in both Carolina, as well as a push in the Boston, New York Islanders. I had over 5. It was exactly 5, so I got my money back. So I ended up with $96. Lost $40 on the Winnipeg Jets to win Game 3. They were underdog, and we all know what happened. When we backed the underdog in that series, we kind of lost. So I'm down $4 in total, but that's not terrible. I'm like, I can live with that. I can live with that, indeed. How did you do?
I think I won 1 and lost 2. So I've taken this strategy. I think I took the over in Carolina, Tampa, and then I think I bet New York, Boston as a tie. But I went more on, I think I went, 50, 30, 20? I think the split that I did. So I ended up taking Carolina, Tampa Bay, over Boston, New York tie, and then I parlayed the two of them. I ended up making $9, I think. I think it was 100. I think it was bet 50 to win 59. And then I lost, obviously, on the overtime and the $20 parlay. So, taking a similar approach today, but who do you like? What's Mick's flavor du jour, soup du jour for the Bettor Advice?
I'm struggling with this one. You know, normally I can take some money, throw it to pad, just kind of throw poop at the wall. And sometimes I do all right. Right now I'm like, I don't know, just because I think I don't have a lot of emotions in the game. Basically, I just bet against my heart. And I do pretty well, because I'm an actual idiot. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to this podcast, but I'm actually, like, legally stupid. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know what I want to do. I kind of want to just go against Montreal. And, like, I understand your points, and yes, it would be great to see a Canadian team, but, like, the Leafs fan in me says I hate Montreal so much that I kind of want to just throw $100 on Vegas. I realize the odds of minus 260 suck. No, you know what? Let's do it differently. I'm going to take Vegas minus 1.5 or plus 105 for $50, and I'm going to put $50 on the over 5.5 goals in the Tampa Bay game. Let's do it that way. Let's make it a little more interesting. So I get plus 120 on the over 5.5, and then I'm going to do minus 1.5 on Vegas at plus 105 for $50. So
I dig it. You and I are too much on the same wavelength sometimes. And that is, I also have $50 on the Tampa Bay Lightning and New York Islanders going over 5.5. Yeah. I have it at plus 118. It's the exact same line. I don't see how. That was an air high five. I don't see how this game stays under. Like, when we've seen how bad Andrei Vasilevsky has been this postseason, when we see how much these teams both love offensive hockey, at least in the postseason. They have both embraced this offensive brand. 5.5, like we saw in one period, 6 goals last week. And granted, obviously different series, but like, I don't know. Line seems way fucky to me. So, over 5.5. I thought about maybe taking the Islanders on the money line in game 1. And I do think that there's there's value in backing the Islanders. But I think that there is better value in backing them in the full 7-game series. Mm-hmm. So I also have $50 on the New York Islanders plus 225 to get past the Lightning. You've mentioned it time and time again on the podcast. It's hard to repeat in any sport, in major sports, in professional sports across the across the sports spectrum. It's so hard to do. We see it every year. Like, oh, look, the Dodgers, or not even kid. So, Lakers. That's the best example. Mm-hmm. Lakers last year, NBA Finals champions, hoisted the Larry O'Brien Trophy, ousted in the first round. They're not a substantially different team than they were last year.
I think they're better.
In fact, they probably got... Yeah, with Andre Drummond, they're probably a better team.
Yeah.
So now when I look at this, I'm like, I have such a hard time at minus 270. And both these teams is shit. So my rationale is that the Islanders have gotten more consistent goaltending, and they've probably been a better defensive team this postseason, and that's going to be the difference. You don't. The adage is defense wins championships, not $18 million over the cap limit wins championships. So I am going with the Islanders plus 225. I'm going to put all $50 on it. I was going to take Montreal at plus 330 or whatever they were, but I decided against that. I was going to do like 25 and 25, and then with the mind like of hedging next week, because I think that this series is going to be far from over at that point. Yeah. Much better value on the series line at that point. However, I'm just going to go $50 on the Islanders for now. Hope it pays off.
Coolio. Yeah, that is... I could get behind Montreal Vegas Stanley Cup Finals. I think like I could actually get behind that, enjoy that series. Knowing that the Islanders or Tampa Bay are going to be on the other side of the Cup Finals, I'm like, those are like almost two of the most boring teams in my mind. You know, like, I don't know. And there's like a lot of emotional ties. Sorry, I don't know if you notice this too, but like when you look at the Islanders and you see like the Jordan Eberle's on the ice and you see like the Barzell's on the ice and you're like, that's really unfortunate. And I see like Lou Lamoriello in the press box and I'm like, son of a bitch. God damn it. Like, I don't know.
You know what? I would say that if the Islanders somehow win the Stanley Cup, that's a big victory for the Edmonton Oilers. They basically gifted the Stanley Cup to the Islanders because they traded away Jordan Eberle for whatever the fuck it was. It was nothing. Then they gave them Matthew Barzal and was it Anthony Beauvillier? Mm-hmm. Like, were those the picks that Edmonton traded them for Griffin fucking Reinhart? Like, is that the trade that we're reliving? Anyways, Edmonton played a role in this. And to see that they took those pieces, like, this could have been Edmonton's championship. And I'm going to accept it as such. They're going to be like the Stanley Cup champion New York Islanders with honorable mention to the Edmonton Oilers.
So are you giving... So that you want to go like back in time and talking about a time machine. If we went back like 40 years in time, not just 30, 40 years, and you're looking at the New York Islanders dynasty from the 80s, and then you see the tail end of that kind of leads into the Edmonton Oilers dynasty, you're kind of looking at and saying like, look, we already got our Gretzky. All we need to do is put the pieces in. We'll let the Islanders win a couple cups. We'll come, and then we'll fucking be the next dynasty. That's fucking galaxy brain that you just pulled on us right there.
Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. My brain's still spinning.
So I think sometimes we normally
do that top.
Oh yeah, the dreidel.
It's happening right now, man.
Yeah, cool, smart. I think normally we do My Dirty Fantasy first. Oh, I shifted for some reason. I hit the... whatever. Oops. Whoop. There we go. We do usually, so we have two different segments. We just have our gambling segment. We take 100 theoretical dollars. I don't know why I didn't explain this beforehand. Whatever. We're gambling. I think we're doing all right. We're probably up a little bit. No, now I moved that down. Damn it. Is that correct? I don't know. Maybe at some point we'll get like an actual tally on how we're doing on our gambling. But I think if you would have followed us, you would be at least even.
That's not bad. Like, for free advice, I would say that's all right.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And maybe somebody's taken one of these nuggets and turned it into millions of dollars. Who knows?
Could happen. So with that, we're going to look at our... I think we at one point we ran like pools, and then we just kind of gave up because no one really cared. So we're going to look at fan duels. I think Grant's got a lineup. I got a lineup for tomorrow's affair. It's interesting when there's only one game. You have to do captains that get a 1.5 times bonus, and then you have to build the rest of your lineup. Let's see how you did. Grant, how did you do for your entry tomorrow? I have a $1 entry. I think it was like $50 or 50 people or something like that I entered. And if it loads, you'll see who I have.
Yeah, so I will recap last week, and I should have listened to myself. I left Tuukka Rask. That was the difference. I ended up losing 4-1. If I would have switched for Andrei Vasilevsky, and I toyed with the idea, I didn't do it. Ended up costing me. I finished with 127.9 points. Looks like I was just about, 16 points, 15 points out of the money. So Andrei Vasilevsky would have been that difference. Martin DeCasse kind of pooped himself, and Charlie McAvoy wasn't what I needed him to be. Otherwise, everybody was 13 plus. So, but with tomorrow in mind, I have obviously shared my opinion that I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I've kind of alluded to the fact that I like the Islanders. So, I have taken 3 New York Islanders, and I've taken 2 Tampa Bay Lightning. And I went bargain shopping too, because I liked a few too many, I should say, of the high-priced players. So I have my captain as Anthony Beauvillier. I think that this guy, what we've seen, at least analytically, from a metrics perspective, he's been one of the best, if not the best players. So he is my captain, and I went a little off-brand because I know, like, the temptation is Nikita Kucherov. Why wouldn't you want Nikita Kucherov? He's leading the playoffs in points. But I went Anthony Beauvillier because I do believe in the New York Islanders tomorrow. So I also have him with Matthew Barzal. I think that with, both of them, obviously big parts of the offense. I'm pretty sure they play on the same line together. So I've also included Nikita Kucherov as another one of my players. So basically, between the 3 of them, I've taken, I think it was 3 of the 5 most high-priced players. That didn't leave me much to play with. But it did leave me enough money to go with Barclay Goodrow for $6,500. If Barclay Goodrow is good enough for a first-round pick, he's good enough for $6,500 in my DFS lineup. And a name that I've seen creeping up in game scores, and that is this guy does everything. He blocks shots, he hits, he sometimes gets involved in with secondary assists. Scott Mayfield, he averages about 9 fantasy points a game, $6,500 salary. So the 5 of those guys left me, I think it was, remaining salary is $500. I didn't want to do anything with it. I felt like this was the right thing to do. So that is my $1 FanDuel lineup for tomorrow. What do you got?
Sweet. So sorry, if you were watching on the video, I did kind of go back to my last episode. I had a pretty good start. I had Kucherov, I had Jakub Slavin, he got me 26 points. Then just no one really did anything, and I think I ended up with $1. I bet $1, and I won $1, so I was pretty excited. I finished 12th, something like 169 points or whatever we just saw on the screen there. So that's how I did last week. This week, I was very tempted to put Kucherov up there, but I went the second highest. I took Braden Point as my captain as the 1.5 times point multiplier at $14,500. Kucherov obviously has to be in there at number 2. And then, I went bargain shopping. I saw a name I recognized, Tyler Johnson, $6,500. Sure, why not? Anthony Cicerelli for $8,000. Cool. And then I kind of like Kyle Palmieri. I don't know if I said that correctly. I'm not saying it. I don't know why. Kyle Palmieri. Palmieri? Kyle Palmieri. Palmieri, right? If I say it's Palmieri. If I read it, I can't say it, but I know it's Kyle Palmieri. No, I can't. Anyways,
it's Italian. You got to do more Palmieri.
Palmieri. All right. Yeah. So I took him.
There you go.
Sure, why not? That's kind of what I threw together. So hopefully those guys scrap something together. A little different. I never get defenseman. I didn't get a goalie. Let's see what happens. So I'm gonna save that entry. I also was bored the other day, and I'm gonna show this on the screen. Let's see how I'm doing. If I click live, I have a Euro Cup FanDuel lineup right now. I have no idea. I don't know how the players on there. So I'm not winning any money. Surprise. That's too bad. Huh. So,
yeah, I don't know if you saw this, but they had to suspend Denver versus Finland. I guess Christian Eriksen collapsed on the pitch. Saw something update on my screen here. The FanDuel lineup just kind of went blank. I was like, that's weird. And not FanDuel, sorry. My sportsbook line just went blank. I was like, well, that's weird. And then I feverishly tried to figure it out. But apparently the game has been suspended. Huh. So that is... UEFA have announced the match between Denmark and Finland has now been suspended. And that is because Christian Eriksen collapses during game against Finland.
Interesting. Good. Well, I'm glad I parlayed them with Belgium, one of those teams with Belgium later, so that's all right.
Obviously, mixed bets take priority.
Yeah. Like, I don't care about this man's health. I care about, like, what the heck's going on with my monies? Huh, that's weird. Interesting. I knew we were talking a little bit of maybe soccer, so I put a jersey on. It's pretty exciting. Yeah, that's all I got. Euros. You got anything? Is that for hockey? Are we done for hockey? We did our lineups. We talked a little bit about what we think's going to happen. There's no other news.
Okay. Yeah, and I think these goddamn tech issues, I don't know what's going on. Before we even started recording, we encountered things.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
I think maybe that impacted some of our flow and dialogue in the early part of the show. It seems to be better now, and that seems to have resolved the issue. However, we do have a little bit of time to talk about soccer. So, Mick, I know that neither one of us really have a vested interest in soccer or soccer outcomes. Granted, we'll obviously bet on it every time. Anytime there's something to bet on during the day. I know you and I both like to partake. So, with that in mind, who is your team to beat in Euro 2020 being played in 2021?
I don't. Well, let's pull up the odds. Let's see what's going on. I like winners. I mean, I haven't heard a lot about it, and I haven't dove too much into it. As we see, I've got a Die Mannschaft shirt on here, so I mean, always yay Germany. I mean, as I'm looking at the board here, I realize it's not a very great pick. I don't hate France. I mean, I know they won the World Cup. I think it was a couple of years ago, right? 3 years ago now or something like that? 2 years ago? So, I mean, cheering for a France or something like that, I think could kind of go far. But we saw with the Euros from 5 years ago, or was it 4 years ago? Whatever it works out to be. That the little Portugal, when they won, right? Like, they just basically scraped by. I think they ended up maybe even as the second place team in their division. Maybe they ended up just kind of in like a draw situation, won it. So, I mean, it's one of those things where try and watch as much as you can and kind of take from it. Early on, though, I've always found that soccer is kind of one-sided, right? Like, if you take a bunch of favorites and parlay them together, oftentimes those are the actual results, especially in these bigger tournaments, right? When kind of everything matters. So, I didn't really answer your question. I don't know. I think I just told you the favorite.
Grant, so I think if I'm remembering correctly, Portugal's chances last year, they did even worse. Like, they didn't even finish top 2 in their group, if I'm remembering correctly. They actually finished third, and they got one of like the wild card berths into the knockout stage. And then it was just basically like extra time match until they beat. Was that France?
I think so.
Was it France in the finals? And I think it even took extra time in the finals.
Yeah.
So, I love tournament betting, whether it's like Euros, Olympics, World Cup, soccer, rugby, whatever. I just fucking love it. Like, I get so hooked into it, and I don't want it. Normally, I do all right. And my favorite part about Euro 20, well, I guess, or like soccer tournament betting is that you can name the finalists. Like, you can bet on these two teams to make it to the finals. And I don't know why. And I know that it's so fucking asinine. Like, it's probably the biggest waste of money. But I just can't help myself, Mick. Like, I just like, and last year, or I guess last tournament, it was I had top goal scorer and finalists. Like, that was the wager that I loved. I had Antoine Griezmann and Portugal at like 43-1, something like that.
Sweet.
And it ended up hitting. So, like, I don't know what it is, but I just love the tournament style betting. So, with that in mind, I think that we are going to see a bit of an upset. Maybe not an upset, but a surprise team. A dark horse emerge, because there's always a dark horse that goes on a deep run. And I don't know why, but I got this funny feeling about Poland this year. So, I have taken England, who are the tournament betting favorites, versus Poland in the Euro finals for plus 100.
Sweet.
That's my pick right now. This will evolve as the tournament plays out, but for right now, that's what I'm hanging my hat on.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where maybe for future market, wait and see, because typically players that start off hot, that look like they're kind of playing well, keep performing, right? Like, we'll see that, like, if Gareth Bale has a big performance for Wales or something like that early on, looks like he's putting points up. Sometimes once guys' feet get hot, they kind of seem to hit the back of the net a little more. So just pay attention to those like early results and stuff like that. If we're seeing upsets or draws, or a guy, get multiple kind of goals in one game, just keep an eye on that. Go from there. And yeah, I threw a bunch of money randomly on Italy blindly yesterday. That helped. Won some money there. I had a parlay that obviously doesn't exist anymore. Thanks a lot, guys. Collapsing.
Yeah, I had the Azzurri yesterday too, and the rationale, and I had it on a Sports Select ticket too, so it was kind of one of those double wins because I had two baseball games, or no, I had the Knights and a baseball game. No, I didn't even have Knights in a baseball game. I had Knights in Jazz from Thursday night, and then I also included Italy on Friday's slate. That's what it was.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right indeed. Sweet. Cool. Soccer. I think once I watch more games next week and I get into it this weekend, next weekend I'll show up and I'll have like 1,000 opinions. I don't really know anything. I kind of got to dive into it a little bit today. So,
face painted, black eye.
Yeah.
Mix fully into it now.
I did it. Got really going. Got really, really into it. So cool.
You want to go? You want to know like every like communities all over the place, and that is like in big communities like where we live. There's different, obviously, cultural markets, and I know that in, 2004 when Greece won the Euros, that like Greek village in Toronto just blew up. Like, it was just fucking huge. Like, everybody was outside on the streets partying. I'm thinking we should go find a Macedonian market and just go whatever the team is Macedonia is playing. We'll go in opposite colors and we'll go just start fighting the Macedonians in the Macedonian markets. You in?
I mean, at plus 50,000, they obviously aren't foolhardy. They'd be like, well,
that's what I'm picturing. That's how we get our black eyes. That's how we show up with our black eyes next week, is we're picking fights in the Macedonian markets, dressed in who's Macedonian playing. Austria. No, never mind. Let's go for the Netherlands match.
All right, perfect. Yeah, wear some orange. Like, inadvertently just wear orange. Just be really subtle about it. That's the thing. It's like we don't want to have actual jerseys, orange shirts, and just sit and watch. Again, I told you that this guy was a little abrasive. You didn't believe me, but you should have believed me. So
you should have believed him.
Cool. So with that, I think that leaves one segment. Yeah,
we can't get through a podcast without the Canada Puck Babe of the Week. I found a new way of ensuring that these women don't disappear from my Instagram feed, but that is my secret to know and your guys' is to find out. Anyways, our babe of the week today is brought to you from UCSB, which I think is University College of Santa Barbara. Cclaire.bbear. So that is CCLAIRE.BBEAR. Considers herself a fitness model, and I would tend to agree. Cclaire Bear is our babe of the week.
Congratulations. Schwing! Nice. Cool. So that wraps up another show. Maybe we'll have a game. You know what? I feel like we're a little bit light in the schedule and our content. I know we got the Euros, but I'm thinking next week, maybe we could see a little Canada Puck Jeopardy. So don't want to like throw things away or like play all my hands, but I think things kind of quiet down. Yeah, a little maybe Jeopardy next week. So that's something that I need to now do. Yikes!
The return of the Jeopardy, man. I'm gonna spend all week cramming, and by cramming, my version of cramming is getting extra drunk and playing video games. So
great. That's kind of my plan for the rest of the day. So awesome, cool. So with that. Party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We will see everybody next week.
Awesome. Bye, guys.